Hi, this is Cheryl for Bears Pampered Stampers. Today I want to show you how to assemble this card kit using papers and the foils from Rinea. They're beautiful foils. They're fun to work with. In the last card kit I did for you, we looked at coloring the foil and tearing it and sanding and those sorts of things. Today I want to look at how it die cuts and some other properties, how to shape it a little bit. So for this card, I think it's, again, not one of the world's greatest designs, but the idea is to show off the foil and what it can do. Look at those very thin lines. It can cut with no problem. So detailed cutting is no problem for this foil. And on the shaping side with this poinsettia, oh my goodness, how easy. All you have to do is move it with your fingers and it stays put. So no complex or difficult or whatever flower shaping for you. Of course, it can go back to being flat to get in an envelope and get mailed, but you can always zhuzh it up a little whenever you want, or your recipient can as well. So pretty. So for this card in your kit, you've got, of course, the card base. We've got this layer, which is the snowflakey paper. It's so cool. Absolutely love it. I cut the wreath out of the metallic paper that Melissa has in the back room. And sorry, my Merry Christmas is hanging on for dear life here. Yeah, that just always happens. It's really cool how these things turn out. This looks about as grapevine-y as a grapevine wreath can look. And it has kind of a similar shine to the foils, so it looks really, really cool on this paper. I did die cut all the pieces for you because, well, I'm not going to expect you to have all the dies. But here's what I used in case you're interested. From Gina Marie, we have this fun holiday wreath. I've used this so many times for so many years now. This is actually my second die. From Sunny Studio, this set of greenery, I used these two pieces. You could use literally any greenery with this because it all works out. I used my favorite blooming poinsettia from Poppy Stamps. This has been around for years too. I absolutely love, love, love this die set and the smaller version of it as well. I used only this little petal set here, the mini one. I felt like that leaf was going to be too big, so I didn't choose it for my greenery, and that's why I went with the Sunny Studio set. And then last but by no means least, from Pink and Maine, I used these great holiday sentiments. There's Merry Christmas, which I used, and Season's Greetings, which I did not. These all cut out in one piece, which is so nice, but they're very fine and very detailed, and I think they show off very well how far you can go with this foil and still have a usable object. Again, for future reference, included in this die set is sort of the blob die that can go behind. So if I wanted to do Season's Greetings in white on a red blob for my card, it would be very easily done with this set. So another cool set. I believe Melissa has all 4 of these things in stock currently. This is a standard, and the poinsettia is a standard. Those I think she keeps pretty much all the time. This is a newer die from Sunny Studio, as well as the Pink in Maine. So hopefully there's still some left if you need them. I'm sure she can order more in. If not, so you're all set. Mostly to assemble this, we're going to use glue dots. The reason is the Rinea foil is a non-porous surface. So while you can glue it and it will work, it takes a few minutes to dry. So I just find it easier to use a good old-fashioned glue dot to attach things together. I used my Nuvo glue in some instances, and if you have hot glue gun, a hot glue gun would work very well as well. This is standard cardstock, the Snowflake, and this again is that specialty metallic cardstock that's in the back room in many different colors. So for this, I think it's just as easy to glue it into place. This is going to glue just fine. I'm not going to get too excited about over gluing it. When I do things like wreaths and florals and other sorts of things, I like to leave some room for movement. Let them shift a little, let them pull up a little. It makes them look more natural and kind of alive. So I've got very little glue on, as you can see, and I'm just going to flip this over and place it on this layer. And it doesn't matter how you lay the wreath, you lay it however you think is right. Just a little bit in from this edge. On the other side, we're going to have the sentiment over there. The Nuvo glue, as you know, dries pretty quickly, so you don't have to worry about it moving around so much. So we can move on and assemble our flower. There should be 3 pieces for that, 2 of the flower and 1 centerpiece. Now, when you look at your flower pieces, because I cut these together, meaning I cut 2 layers of foil at once, you're going to have one that has deeper impressions in it and one that has lighter impressions. And that's just part of the cutting process. It's no big deal. You can decide whether you want the deeper on front. I think that makes sense because the eye is drawn toward that detail, which is right on the top, and behind you have a fainter detail, but it still shows through. So I'm going to add a glue dot to the back of that top piece. We all have our methods for using glue dots. Mine happens to be pulling them off the sheet usually. Sometimes they're a little snotty about that, but I usually just pull it off and apply it to the paper that I want it to go on. Here I want it to go in the center of that flower. And so I set it in place. When I put these flower petals together, I am just going to offset them so that I have all the petals showing, just kind of like that. Again, there's no right or wrong or perfect. By using a glue dot, my flower is dry and ready to go. If you use glue, again, because this foil, this is the Rinea foil, it is not going to be quite ready to go if you use regular glue. It's non-porous, it doesn't absorb, so it needs full drying time, whatever that is for your glue. And sometimes that's actually quite a lot. So again, I think the glue dot makes more sense for assembling things. I'm going to grab myself another glue dot here, and we'll put the center in place. Now for this glue dot, these are the smaller ones, but it's still kind of too big for my small center. So I'm just going to fold it up here, and it's going to stick to my finger now. Every time I get on camera, I swear this stuff goes wrong. If you can see, I've folded that up. My camera is not focusing. I can see that. There we go. I folded that up kind of into quarters because this center is very, very small. And you'll notice it's gold on one side, it's blue on the other. You'll want the gold side up. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that folded glue dot on the back. It does a couple of things, folding the glue dot. One thing is it sort of is going to hide it a little bit. Otherwise, we'd have glue dots sticking out everywhere. And the other thing it's going to do is lift my center up a little bit, which is going to add a little dimension to my flower. And so there we go. There's stamen in the center. no glue dots really showing. And so that's pretty much all it takes to finish the flower. Now, easy, so easy, anytime I want to shape it. Grab those petals, grab the flower as a whole, stick it in your hand, and just press down in the center, and look how it's cupped already. So, so easy. So you can finish shaping that so easily, but I don't do too much until I have it in place on the wreath, because putting it in place on the wreath, of course, is going to flatten it again, and that's all right too. So there's my flower pretty well set. The leaves are ready to go as they are. I've given you two pieces, the longer piece there that you see and the shorter piece that's running away from me. There's no right or wrong way to attach these. Once again, I'm going to use my trusty glue dots. I find it easier to start with the short one, and I'm just going to place a glue dot here at the end of the string. And once again, these leaf sets are going to show you just how well that foil does in cutting even those fine details. That stem is so thin and fine, but yet it's all there. It's not threatening to fall apart in any way, shape, or form. This is really sturdy. If you remember from previous videos, I told you the foil is made by taking a paper first and then fusing foil on both sides. So it's the true metal foil. It's not like Reynolds wrap. It's not even that thick, but it's thick enough to give you this beautiful color and texture. I'm going to go ahead and attach that on back of my flower. I just want it to stick out the side here, just about like that. That's about how much leaf I want showing. You show how much you want. I mean, that's the point in these projects. There's a lot of individuality, and actually I'm going to reconsider and move that over just a little bit because I want just a little bit more leaf. Again, the beauty of glue dots in a project like this is you have a lot of ability to move things. But the one leaf is in place now. I'm ready to grab another glue dot and put the second leaf set in place. Again, there's no precision with this. It's just what seems right to you. I'm starting with the lowest set of leaves from my glue dot. I could move it up a little because I don't think I want to show this entire piece of leaf. The other option would be to cut it off or tear it off a little bit because it seems a little bit longish to me. But just kind of play with it to see how you like it to sit and what length you want, and then push it in place on the back of your flower. Something like that. Now, I'm definitely a minimalist when it comes to using glue dots and attaching these. I'm going to do one more glue dot, and I'm ready to attach my flower to the wreath. I like to keep things lightly attached and free-flowing. If I glue them the entire length, then they're never going to move. They're never going to be able to add, I can't add dimension at the ends if they're glued down, essentially. So I want this glue dot on the back, and I'm just going to hang on to this for a second while I grab my Merry Christmas. As you can see, my Mary's folded a little bit. Not to worry, you can take it and straighten it out. No harm, no foul with this foil. Just make sure everything's cut out before you start attaching it. I've got one little goober here in the middle of my S, which I'm going to try and push out. And I should grab my pokey tool, which I don't think is on my desk. So I'm going to flip my flower upside down so it doesn't stick on me. And see what I've got sitting here. Oh, in the meantime, it just fell out. So my S is now free. Everything looks good. I can just go ahead and set this to the side how I think I want it to go on here. And again, there's some pushing around and reshaping involved, and it's not a problem. Just be gentle with this. It's not fragile. It's not going to fall apart in your hands, but it's also not really, really sturdy. So make sure you give it a little respect and just gently move it about, and you'll have no problem repositioning any of the letters or straightening things out, whatever it is you need to do to straighten out your Merry Christmas. And I tried to place it in your kit in a way where it would sort of have its own space and not be jammed in by anything else. But, you know, stuff happens. So just be gentle and you'll be able to straighten that all out with no problems. Now I'm ready to place my flower on. That looks pretty good to me. So I can just set it into place. I'm using a glue dot, so it's there. It's staying. It's not going anywhere. One single glue dot. You don't have to have a dozen. You don't have to have every leaf tied down. This gives me full freedom to bend up if I want to, these leafy edges, to bend up the different petals in the flower, to, you know, sort of pull up the stamen, make it stand up a little bit more like this card does. And by the way, I also added a little rhinestone in the center. There is a rhinestone in your envelope. Mine scooted away from me here, so I don't have it. But those are all things you can do kind of as a finishing touch. So the kind of the last thing we need to do here is to get our Merry Christmas in place. Again, there's so many methods you could use to put it down. I use the Nouveau glue. And again, realizing it's not 100% an ideal choice when working with the Rinea foil, just because that's a non-porous surface. But I have a porous surface in the background here. It's gonna absorb enough. So I'm just gonna flip my Merry Christmas over here. And I want to dot just, actually I'm trying to, there's a little piece of red that I took out of my S. And of course it's placed itself in an awkward place on this wreath. And I'm afraid, there we go. I'm afraid if I leave it in place, it will be forever on my card because it'll grab some glue and just hang on for dear life. But in any event, let's grab the Nouveau and add a little bit of glue to this, keeping in mind that your wreath behind is actually kind of thick because we use that metallic paper from the back room. It is a thicker paper. So to put this very thin foil paper over top and try and smash it flat, you're going to end up with kind of a bump right in this area where it crosses over the wreath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put adhesive at this end and at this end, and nothing in the middle. And it'll be just fine. I know some people are really into, I put adhesive on every square inch because I want it to stick and I want it to stay in place. You don't have to have that for every project. This is one where you don't quite need it. So a few dots of glue, and we're going to be good to turn this over and get it in place on the wreath. Again, I'm focusing just on the end here, checking to make sure I still am in camera here. Sorry. I know you guys like to see. so it's fine. And as small as you can keep your little glue here, the better it's going to turn out, because it won't smush out on your project. By the time you get to eye, you've probably gone more than far enough in adding glue. And so that's all the glue I'm going to add for this. Again, nothing in this section. It's going to be just fine without. So I'm going to flip it over and begin to place it here. It's a wet glue, so I have a few seconds here that I can actually reposition if I have to, but it kind of looks like it's pretty good on there. And so by going all the way over into the eye, I've probably got too much glue on my Christmas, so maybe stop at the R. You can add a little bit at this end. I'm just pushing it down a little bit to try and straighten it, but it all looks good. At this point, you want to let this dry. Let that glue get good and dry. Give it at least 5 minutes or so. Again, when you're dealing with wet glue and non-porous surfaces, patience is a key. You have to just let it go. So I hope what you can see with this project is that you can actually die cut some very detailed things out of the Rinea foil. You can actually cut and shape those gorgeous, gorgeous flowers with minimal effort. Remember, the foil itself comes in, and I'm reaching for the foil, that's why you hear the noise and the struggle in the background, 6 by 12 size, as well as I gotta think about it, it would be a 4 by 6 sheet, I believe is the other size. So these two colors, the red and the green, came in the 12 by 12. They're the textured foil. I love this textured foil. When you're die cutting it, you don't have to worry about, you know how your plates get cut and cracked and everything else, and they'll start to mark paper. So if you put foil in, foil for sure is going to absorb that stuff. You don't see it with the textured foil so much, so you don't have to stress about your plates and everything else. As I said, you can cut 2 layers at once with this. If you're cutting a lot for a big project, cut 2 at once. They're pretty easy to separate. Once you get really detailed, like this little center piece of the flower, that can be a little more difficult to separate, because you've got 5 little fragile ends that you want to keep intact and everything else. But just use your common sense about when you should and when you shouldn't double cut with it. If you're cutting the standard foil, so just the shiny foil like this, you'll want to have a new plate on top at least, because you want the top side of your die cut to not show all the cuts and scrapes and marks that our cutting plates naturally do. So again, these are the 2 flavors of the Rinea foil, the patterned and the solid kind of color. They both work really well. You can hardly see that I've used patterned foil on these cards anymore, because they're cut, they're embossed, and everything else. So there's not a lot going on you're gonna look at it and say, oh, it's nice, but I hate that pattern. You're not really gonna see it. It's almost the same as if I used the flat foil, just a little extra texture. I used the flatter foil when we did the fall card and did the coloring and embossing and that sort of thing. As before, I gave you an extra little piece, I think, of the green, so that you can take a look at that, do a small die cut yourself, see how easily it cuts, try it for shaping, try it for tearing. You think of what you want to try with that little piece, but again, it's there for you to experiment with a little bit. Hopefully in doing these 2 kits, you have a better sense of the Rinea foil and what it can do. It's beautiful to work with. It's very well priced, so it's not expensive. These are 6 by 12 sheets. There's 12 in a package. That's the equivalent of 6 12 by 12 papers for $9.99. So that's not even $2 a sheet. It's really, really reasonably priced. There are some packs called Misfits. This happens to be a partial Misfit pack. I've used a lot of it. When you get the Misfit pack, it's always a variety pack. You never know what's in it, and usually there's not two of them that are the same. There are some solid foils. There's usually some patterns. There may be a lot of similar colors. They could be totally different from one another. Again, they're surprises. They're what used to be called seconds, so they're not exactly perfect sheets, but I haven't seen a lot of imperfection in them either. Those run for usually half the price, so actually the price on this packet is wrong. Don't look at that. The smaller packs are, I believe, $4.99. You get 12 sheets in those, again, unless you're doing the Misfit pack, and then you get double the number of sheets. So there's a lot of foil in here and a lot to play with. When you're ready, after you've tried the card kits and you think you want to go ahead with it, maybe pick up a Misfits pack and have some more fun with it. And then I think it really won't bother you at all to buy the full-size packs. Sometimes you just need to go there for the colors too. And these are just gorgeous for the holidays. Think of all that you can do. Using the metallic and specialty papers just adds so much to our makes at the holidays and every other time as well. And like I said, there's a lot of paper here that you'll be using for quite some time. So the kits are in the store. Check, as always, if you're going in just for the kit, and especially if you're traveling a long distance, because stuff sells and we can't, I mean, that's a good thing, but it's not real cool if you've driven a long ways to get your kit and there's not any left for you. So do check and make sure there's one in stock if you're going long distance or something like that. So to finish up your card, again, there's a little gemstone in your packet. You can just add that to the center, add this card base, this to your card base, and you're good to go. It's meant to be a layer, so there's going to be a white border around it, just like there is on this one. Thanks so much for watching today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.